Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Friday, June 17th, 2022, and this is episode 583 of Living Free in Tennessee, and it is a homestead update week. We did not do a homestead update last week. Instead, we had that freeze drying interview with Jake, which I thought was a really good one. I hope those of you who've been thinking about getting a freeze dryer enjoyed that interview and learned some things about it. If you were at Self-Reliance Festival, which is why I wasn't recording on Friday, Jake was there. So you missed a chance to talk to him if you were not. He does tend to get out to events as much as possible. And we are recording live today. If you have questions and I can fit them in as I go, good morning, Letty. I will do that. Try to put the first couple words in all caps so I can see it with these eyes of mine, which are doing great after getting not a lot of sleep this week. I see so well when I'm sleepy. And we also have a bunch of possibility to stay on afterwards for questions and answers. So like I'll record the podcast. I'll say, make it a great week. And then I'll stay on the live feed if anybody has any other questions about homesteading, pantry management, life in general, hand washing stations at Self-Reliance Festival, whatever it is, that would be great. Please pass thanks to Tactical Redness for his service. I will do that when I see him next. So usually I'd invite the Holler neighbors on. It's possible Jenny will be able to hop on from her phone, but she's offsite. Tactical's offsite. I don't think he'll be back in time to be on here this week. But we're going to make this a weekly thing. Next week's live feed is going to be in the afternoon because I'm driving home from a trip and I won't be here till afternoon. And I thought it would be better to wait and just do the homestead update in the afternoon. So today we're going to talk about some things that happened this week, some of which, if you follow me on YouTube, you've already heard about. So, but my audio podcast people have not. And that's addressing a bloat in a ram. What's up with the rabbits? We're going to talk about pigs, muscovies. There's a lot going on with livestock. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about weedmageddon because weedmageddon season is here. It's also August. I don't know why it's August, but August arrived this week. This has happened to me before. In 2007, August also arrived in June. And it was a very hot summer. And I don't know if that means this is a very hot summer. We had a very rainy spring and then a very hot summer. But it's weather, man. Like anything could happen. It could also mean that in August we get September. That has also happened here before where it's just like suddenly it's mid 60s in August and my tomatoes are like, what the actual, man? So we'll see. I also wanted to announce that Self-Reliance Festival, you just had it last weekend. The next one's October 1st and 2nd. Tickets went on sale today. If you want to be a speaker, there's a presenter application form. If you want to give a demonstration, there's a demo application form, and we are ready to set up vendors. We are not ready for sponsors other than to start talking to people who want to sponsor it. We're going to do a little bit different package for sponsors this year, although you can still back a bog and some other things. But I wanted to spend time talking to the sponsors who were there, making sure they got the mileage they wanted to get from supporting the event and that sort of thing before we said, okay, this is sponsorship. So there are sponsorship opportunities. Reach out if you want to be a sponsor, but at the same time, we may have a different way that, some different things you can sponsor. Okay, with that, I'm going to jump into the homestead update today. We're going to start with our first segment, which is forage. This is wild forage and garden forage and any other forage we're getting from the homestead. The mimosa trees are blooming and the mimosa blooms are falling. And mimosa blooms have some medicinal properties. So if you like to collect things for medicinal properties, go out and get you some blooms and dry them at room temperature and look up what they do. That was just something I noticed. I learned some things about mimosas that we'll talk about later in the episode. And those of you who are thinking of a cocktail right now, I'm talking about a tree. There's a tree that puts out these beautiful pink blossoms. It's called the mimosa tree. They grow wild here. They have planted themselves on my property in a few places. I got a second head of cauliflower that's the size of a golf ball. And I was really surprised because I thought it was a cabbage plant, but I can't complain. So we'll have a very carefully cut up cauliflower in our saute tonight. And the green, like we're getting green onions, Swiss chard, squash flowers are coming on, green tomatoes. If I want them, I usually don't harvest them at this time of year. It's time for new potatoes. So you start digging from the outside and you get the little potatoes. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to let the potatoes be potatoes. But you could do that if you were super hungry. In fact, when my grandma was growing up during the Depression and they were subsistence living, and at this time of year, food would be a little spare. And my great grandfather would choose one potato plant that they could do this to, and they were allowed to glean a certain amount of new potatoes, like small potatoes from the outside. The reason he only let them do that with one plant was that he needed the actual potato bulk to make it through the winter. So, if you're subsistence, like if you're really trying to live off the land, sometimes you're like, I can eat that, but I'm not going to eat it right now. Because we hardly eat very many potatoes here. I have a few plants. We're going to harvest them. Hopefully they'll last, long enough to replant some of them next year. And I'll make mashed potatoes on Thanksgiving and Christmas. And that'll be pretty much be it for our potatoes here, unless I have a bumper crop for some reason. But I will say this year, my potato crop, the plants are looking the healthiest they've ever looked, which is kind of funny because other plants in that same garden space are not looking the healthiest. Like I have some stressed looking tomatoes that a couple of them I pulled because they were starting to get blight. And that's interesting. And I think it's just because those plants are weak. And the reason they're weak is my garden nutrition balance is off. And it's getting better. I keep putting rabbit poop on. It's getting better, but it's not there. It's also a good time of year to get seeds for things. So I walked out of my door and saw a bundle of long seed stalks hanging off the railing to my outdoor shower, and they're plantain seeds. And I thought, oh yeah, I've noticed that the bodock seeds are coming on, the plantain seeds, any of the wheats, the buckwheat we had seed heads. That means you can harvest it and use it, or you can reseed with it. Like those sorts of things are dandelions. It's time for those seeds. If you want to collect seeds for some of the wild edibles, you can do it right now. We also have blossoms on the elderberry still, and those can be eaten on salads, or you can fry them up as a fritter, which totally negates, and then put maple syrup on them. Totally negates any reason to like stay keto if you do that. So I don't do that, but you can totally do that. I leave the blossoms on my elderberry plants so that they turn into the actual elderberries. Hopefully the bees will do enough pollination this year that they get I have a good crop. And Aaron's saying, just did my garden 30. Yeah. I will tell you this, a morning garden 30 is way better than an evening garden 30 when I'm doing it. Yesterday, when I got done with the garden 30, I was so drenched in sweat. It was crazy. I was actually kind of glad the camera wasn't on me, although tonight the camera probably will be on me. It was nuts. And I was choking. I got some pollen down my throat at the very end, and I was like, could not talk. So I ended the live feed, but I have recovered from the incident, and I have no idea which plant did that to me out there, but it was probably the bodock. I think it was the bodock had some pollen on it, and that just was like, bleh. I just could not even do it. We've got sweet potato greens coming on. So like the warm weather greens are coming on. Swiss chard is getting kind of fried right now. Kale is telling me to go pound sand, but I have Malabar spinach, which is a vine, and the leaves taste like spinach. And that's doing great. Like it's the best my Malabar spinach has ever done. I've only have a couple vines, started it inside, babied it inside, took it outside, planted it in a pot with lots of rabbit poop, and it is just exploding. And then those leaves are spinach tasting. So you can do sautés with them or put them fresh on your salad. And they love the heat. And you can break vines off and root them and propagate them, which is like printing money. So we have that. And then the sweet potato greens are edible. Actual potato greens are not edible. Sweet potato greens are exploding in my aquaponics system from the purple variety. All other sweet potatoes on the property are not looking that great. I have started some new slips inside, and I'm planting them around. That's all I'm doing because I love sweet potatoes and I love sweet potato greens. So that's basically what's coming off my garden and off the land here. I'm sure I've missed something. Oh yeah, the daylily flowers are ready to be harvested and eaten. Okay, next segment is livestock. This is where all the action is this week, is livestock. And so we went away for Self-Reliance Festival. 2 of the days, no hauler neighbor. Well, actually, Jenny was here. But 2 of the days, usually there's either tactical or Nicole sauce in the hauler for animals. 2 of those days, both of us were gone. Jenny was doing morning animals, and she's familiar with the animals, so she knows, or I guess she was doing out. Anyway, she was doing one of the stuff. She knows like what they look like day to day. Because like the big challenge of having, yes, you caught me live, Sugar Creek. Guys, questions in all caps. I'll star them and answer them after the podcast is been finished recording. But the thing about being around animals is you observe them, you get to know them, you know when they look healthy, you know when they look unhealthy, all of those things. And so having any hauler neighbor around, like Jenny or Nighthawk, even if they're not interacting with the sheep every day, kind of know what normal sheep looks like. And the sheep got out while we were out of town, and Jenny came over and helped get them back in because she kind of knew how to do that. So that happened, and we survived all that. But there were hijinks all week long from the time we got back, starting with the sheep. And everybody knows we lost a lamb to bloat in our first week on like 7 days in. And I've been told by experts that by 4 weeks in, their gut biome should be fully adjusted to our foliage here. And that's 1 more week from now. And Wednesday night, I was fast asleep. It was 2:45 in the morning. I heard a male voice say, Nicole. And males don't live in my house. So that might have been a little jarring for me. And I said, what? Because I figured they probably weren't about to attack me if, and actually at some point, when you first wake up, you're a little disoriented. I was starting to catch up. I'm like, there's only a couple people who know how to get into my house after it's been locked up, who have access. So, and I didn't hear anybody crash the door down, and the dogs didn't go off, and like all of that. I need your help. Why? I need your help with the sheep. Okay, I asked no more questions. I assumed we had a bloat problem. I didn't know if it was just so then I heard footsteps leave. I got up, found my boots, and decided before I walk out all the way out to the pasture, I'm going to make a mixture of water and baking soda. I'm going to get I really need a flushing plunger. Like, I can't remember what it's called. Flushing. I just can't think of it. Anyway, it's like a hypodermic needle without the hypodermic, whatever that mechanism is called. So I got that. I got my lantern because it was dark. And I wonder where my lantern is now. It probably should be recharged. Walked out there. And I was like, do we have a bloat problem? He said, one of the sheep is not doing well. And I said, which one? He's like, he's kind of stumbling around. Syringe. Thank you, Carrie. It's a syringe. I cannot think of the word syringe today or yesterday or the day before. It's like been like, it's like poison hemlock. I can't think of the H word today. I can't think of the S word. So I said, which one? And he said, the one that's stumbling. It's really obvious. And so all the sheep are milling about. And I see the one who's unsteady on his feet. And I'm like, well, we got to catch him because I got to get this baking soda because he probably has bloat. And if he doesn't have bloat, like, it doesn't hurt to give him baking soda. So we caught him by putting fresh hay out. And when they have bloat, like dry matter instead of fresh green matter is better. It like helps calm the stomach. And so we put fresh Timothy hay out that was dry. All the sheep came over and were like super happy because they love the hay. And we looped around his neck. And then I walked in. This was one who doesn't love being handled. So I looped around his neck, and then, well, I didn't, Tactical did. And then I went up, and then it struggled a little bit. And then because it was kind of like, picture a sheep being drunk. That's kind of how it was, like really unsteady on his feet, fell over. And I had Tactical help me hold him. And then I forced with the syringe the liquid into his mouth. And by the time he was on the ground, it's like, oh, you're stronger than me. I'll let you do what you need to do. And then we started massaging his belly down low to push the air up, and he burped, which is good because nobody's taught me how to put a tube down a sheep's mouth to release pressure, which I really want to learn how to do in the next 2 weeks. So if you're hearing this and can teach me how to do this, let me know. So we did that, and then just kind of stayed with him for a while. I let him, I had him get up a few times to see how steady he was. And when he was steady enough, I did a second injection through his mouth of the baking soda mix and kept massaging the belly while he was standing up from underneath, and he burped some more. And Tactical by this point had gotten a dog collar and a leash and put that on him. So we basically had a ram on a leash and walked him a little bit because walking helps, burp more, and let him eat as much of that Timothy hay as he wanted. And then, it was probably 45 minutes, an hour later, it looked like he was over the crisis. You have never heard a goat burp. It was a sheep burp. I might keep interchanging the word goat and sheep, guys. I don't know. But they will burp. And it's not super loud, but you're like, yep, that was a burp. That's what burps sound like. Anyway, yeah, dang, you're late, Michael. Welcome to the live stream. Anyway, so he seemed to be getting better, and his side was visibly smaller. He had like a concave instead of a big balloon belly, and he's been really skinny. He's also been the one that had some soft stool, so we were already worried about him. And it's been really freaking hot here, like freakishly hot, like 100 degrees hot. And they're being rotated through a part of my property that's naturally cooler anyway because it's in a ravine, just as best we can. And once that was done, I was like, okay, now what do we do? Like, I couldn't trust him walking around because he was wobbly. If he falls on the electric fence, it shorts out, and then the sheep get in. The sheeps get out again, which is how we knew this was happening. And so Tactical's like, well, I'm not going to fall asleep anyway. It's like 4 a.m. So I'll sit here. I was like, go get a camp chair, get some water. He got a cup of coffee, came back out. I handed him the leash, which was just keeping that ram from getting too far, right? And keeping him near the Timothy hay and the water and all the things. I went back inside, refilled Tactical's coffee cup because that's how fast he was drinking coffee. And I got some vitamins that Dawn had left with us, and we actually put vitamins down his throat too. He was and then I went back to go to sleep. You're not going to go to sleep after something like that. So I did not sleep until 5:30 or 6. I got up at 6:30, wondering how he was, and he was better. He was solid on his feet again. So we called that a huge success. Now this particular ram is still looking a little punky. Like he's got an orange dog collar on still because I was like, just leave it on and we can more easily catch the guy. In fact, we may put collars on all the sheep, which I know sounds silly, but it's actually kind of nice to have something to hang on to. We have collars on our goats too. So he's getting more vitamins today. I'm going to have to reorder the vitamin mix that he gets. And we have some different minerals coming in. They have open access to selenium and some other things, but I'm going to give him open access to some other stuff. And everybody else looks fine, by the way. It's just this one that's he's just struggling. And normally if you were going to do like the Greg Judy method of just let it die, whatever, even Greg Judy allows animals to acclimate to pasture, right? But for me, it's also a financial thing. I want this ram to get fat so that if we process him, he's fat. And I'd like to have that meat rather than all of this effort and no meat. So there's a certain point where if it's taking too much, we won't process an animal. But this one was on the list of might be processed anyway. So so that was great. We like high-fived each other. We're super happy. And now we're also paying closer attention to Tactical's dog, who is the one who alerted us there was a problem. She woke him up in the middle of the night in his house and was like, there is a problem. And he went outside thinking there was an intruder. And then he saw that there was a sheep problem. And because she did that, we saved that ram. If she had not, then it would have been too late when we woke up in the morning because this was at 2:45. I've also come to the conclusion that bloat happens at nighttime and never during the daytime. So I'd like to get some cameras on these sheep. I am excited that we are coming on the 4-week mark next week. I'm less excited that it's like 100 degrees for a couple days next week. I'm a little worried about what that's going to mean. So just thinking about sheep cooling strategies. That's where we're at right now. The rabbits are due this week if they're pregnant. If they're not pregnant, they will become meat rabbits. And yes, every homestead needs a tactical redneck or a redneck of some sort. This is 100% true. So rabbits are due. We've been having trouble getting them pregnant. And yes, that's a very smart dog. She just does not like change. She's also got part cattle dog in her, so I think that's part of what's up there. She just notices the livestock. If they don't get pregnant, they're gone. The reason they may not be getting pregnant is my fault. We've been overfeeding them and they're kind of fat. So we've reduced their feed, but overweight rabbits have a harder time getting pregnant. We're going to change genetics up if it doesn't work. That is what it is. And that's how you get that going. Although I love using their poop in the garden. I don't know why I waited so long to get rabbits. I was like, they're too cute. I can't kill them. And now I'm like, yeah. And now they're part of the meat structure here. The other thing we learned about sheep is that they're particular to certain bucket colors. We water the sheep with 5-gallon buckets. Sheep kick over buckets, by the way. So you have more than one in your pasture. And we have a red bucket and a white bucket and another red bucket. The one that's always kicked over is the white bucket. And Tactical was talking to somebody at Self-Reliance Festival, and they said, well, they're partial to different colors. And so we're going to put a rainbow of barrels out and see which colors work best. But having multiple buckets in this situation is super helpful because if one's kicked over, they are not, they're not going to be like water deficient, especially when it's this hot. You do not want them water deficient. So having multiple buckets is good because one goes over, the other one still has water in it. You're good to go. If you have 3 or 4, then you're really good to go. You can put rock or something heavy in the bottom to make it less tippy, but I've noticed it usually gets tippy when it's lower. And so I think maybe they're partial to white buckets. They drink them down first, then they kick them over, and then the red buckets are still up. I don't know. It could be. It could be. And we're having a discussion about rabbit cuteness right now. The Muscovies that we got from Lisa are already broody. They've been here a week and a half. And I said, stop collecting. I guess I've been here almost 2 weeks. Don't collect Muscovy eggs, Tactical, because they're quarantined from the other ducks right now for 2 weeks, just to make sure we don't inadvertently bring in illness. And he did, and we came back from SRF, and the Muscovy looked broody. So we took Khaki Campbell eggs that day and shoved them under the Muscovy. And then he said last night, I'm going to double check. She's really broody. Not only did he get hissed at by the duck, he got yelled at by the duck. So we now know she's broody. I'll make the duck gangster video at some point where you walk up to a broody duck and they act all badass. That's what they do. Protecting the eggs, man. That's why we got the Muscovies, by the way, because the males make good meat birds, and the Muscovies are known for caring for eggs, and my Khaki Campbells keep not getting the job done. So I want, my favorite way to raise poultry or to brood poultry is to let the ducks or the chickens raise the animals because they're more in tune with what the little babies actually need. And then that also passes on the cultural knowledge of how we work on the homestead and go to bed at night and all those things. So that's really exciting for me. The pig yesterday started building a nest like she's about to give birth. And I rushed over there because I was like, crap, I haven't looked at the pig in a week because Jenny takes care of her. What if she's super pregnant and I didn't know it? If she's pregnant, I was expecting babies in September. Okay. Not June. And so I went over there. Sure enough, she's doing what she did last time she gave birth, which is running around, ripping stuff out of the ground, making a nest. But she was willing to pause and eat an apple, which she would not have done last time she gave birth. No milk drop visible. Doesn't look particularly fat. So I don't think she's pregnant. I think she's building a nest for another reason. Now, we may get thunder showers today. Last time she built a nest, which I didn't see her build it, I just saw the nest, we had an earthquake. And that was a month ago or so. And then the rains came and wiped out the nest because she built it below where the water line is if it rains. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on that. But I'm expecting babies in September and not June. That doesn't mean that they didn't like sneak it by me. And Michael says, I have a hillbilly bloat here I can share with you. I just need to confirm my memory with Angela. Excellent. Excellent. I did not realize having sheep was all about bloat because my goats never had bloat. But I think what's happening here, because they're kind of clearing new ground, is they are finding some rich plants. Nick Ferguson was here this week, and I had a walk around the property with him, like pointing out things. I was like, is that good for sheep? Is that plant good for sheep? Is that plant going to kill sheep? And I had misidentified a few plants that I thought would be bad for sheep that are not bad for sheep. And then the mimosa trees. So apparently sheep are not supposed to eat mimosa foliage, and they were under a mimosa recently to this latest bloat incident. And it's possible the last time it happened that there was a small mimosa seedling, because that part of the property has some too. So we're now, because we're committed to sheep, and I love how pretty mimosas are, guys, we're going to eradicate them, because I don't want animals to die because I have poison on my property for them. And right now that's dropping the blossoms. So it's, possible what happened with Floki too, as we've been referring to him, is he may have gotten some blossoms because they looked tasty, and there they were, and they blew over. So that tree's coming out. And we have a couple other mimosa trees that are coming out. And that is what it is. I would rather do that than have these problems ongoing. And I really think like the rest of them are just looking great. So I just think this one has had a little struggle with the transition to a new home, and just health wise that can happen. Let's see what else. The goats are jealous of the sheep. So my goat is always like looking like, why are you working with those sheep? You used to hang out with me and pet me. So I have to make a point to go up there and pet her. My goat loves being handled, and I did that on purpose, because any animal that will be super friendly with me is a lot easier to handle if there's a problem. We're trying to do that with the sheep, so I go out there and sit with them and read, and although I haven't the last few days because it's been a freaking inferno oven here. Early in the morning works. I'll probably do that tomorrow morning before I go to the farmer's market. But the goats are jealous, and when I was working with bloaty sheep, they were right. There was a fence between the goats and the sheep, and she was headbutting the fence the whole time, right? Hello, Anarchy, welcome. And so it's just kind of funny to watch different animals being jealous of each other. So the goat needs more attention. I can lead her around on a leash, and ultimately the plan is to let the goats and the sheep interact and see if everybody's free of bullying, if they'll herd together, because that would make my life a lot easier to be able to rotate the sheep and the goats mostly together. And Nick and I were talking, and he said it's interesting because sheep will just follow you, and goats are known for causing chaos. But when you put sheep and goats together, the goats make the sheep a little braver, and the sheep make the goats a little calmer. We'll see if that's true. We'll find out. I need help harvesting honey. If anybody wants to come out and help me get into the hives and put extra supers on them and harvest the honey, that would be awesome. By help me, I mean do it. I'm happy to trade some honey for it. I am allergic to bee stings now, and nobody around the holler really wants to do that. I probably really should get rid of the bees, but they pollinate. So I've been struggling with that, and I do like to get the honey once a year. I go through about a gallon of honey a year here, and it would be nice to have that from my own bees, but I'm actually willing to give that all up if I need to. It's just I really don't want to get stung and go to the emergency room and get like the shot I have to get to keep breathing. So just throwing that out there. I guess the last thing I wanted to talk about with livestock is just about habits and livestock. So we talk about doing 1 or 2 new things on your homestead every year, and people new to homesteading, you should be like, okay, I'm going to do my garden and chickens, or my garden and ducks, or my garden and rabbits, right? Something small. And good morning, empty knives. And you get into this habit of how it all works, what time of day you get up, and you do the food, and you check the water, and you move them around, and you clean the cage, and there's a medical problem, and you deal with the medical problem, or a first aid thing happens and you deal with the first aid thing. You learn how to process them, like all of the things that happen with livestock. And I was not feeling worried about the sheep learning curve because I've done goats for many years and I've done a lot of other livestock. But I knew with the rotational pasture thing, that was going to be kind of a challenge, and Tactical's been taking the lead on that, right? I help him move the sheep, but he does all the work of clearing the path and putting the step-in posts. And I asked him today, I said, has this gotten into more of a habit? Because like the first week, every day, all day, every waking hour that he had was dedicated to fencing and moving sheep and making sure they had water and making sure, like, all of it, every waking hour. And I said, has that gotten better? He's like, yeah, now I can work ahead a little bit. And what I did was get extra step-in posts, and I got these reels, and it's like this reel that you can reel in your fencing wire and then fish it back through somewhere else, which is way easier than doing it by hand. And he then also, Nancy Alexander gave him a couple of reels that she had. Thank you, Nancy. And one of them's a really high-end reel that's nicer than anything he would have bought for himself. And he's like, that one, like now he's convinced that's the only one he should ever buy, right? But by figuring out the right number of step-in posts and having that reeling system, and then to clear a pathway, like he's planning his lines differently on the pasture than he was at first. So it's very easy to clear where he puts the posts. It's gotten a whole bunch easier, and he's often a day or two ahead. Right now, he is not. Right now, he is making the paddock this afternoon for what will be tomorrow. And part of that's because he pulled back on his schedule because we had Nick here and wanted to ask Nick Ferguson as many questions as he could while he was on the property. But he said it's taken about 3 weeks for him to really dial it in. And I suspect by 6 months from now, not only will that be dialed in, but he'll be like, and if we had a map, this is paddock 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like it'll be, this is the rotation, because we still don't know exactly that yet. We know we want the pasture to be at least 3 weeks without sheep on it before they come back to it in an ideal situation, so that if there is a parasite that comes, we break the parasite cycle and they don't accidentally eat a worm they shouldn't eat. And in this way, we can keep them fairly parasite free. We have a variety of sheep that is unlikely to get parasites, like they're parasite resistant, and that's why we chose them. That's why we wanted the St. Croix. So all of that's going to happen, but it'll be a year from now when it's like, okay, this has actually gotten basically easy. We figured out how to be frugal with our time, our resources, and we figured out the process, and now that's good. So I'm just really glad that it's not all day, every day now. Like we're 3 weeks in, we have a system, and the system will get better over time. Okay, that was a lot of livestock updates. Holy cow. It was all about livestock. I guess you get new livestock. You're going to talk about livestock on the Homestead Update all the time. Grow is our next segment. This is where we just talk about how the gardens are going. I'm going to talk about the Grow 30. You guys have, the Garden 30. Those of you who follow me on YouTube know that I have started a live stream where I'm just pulling weeds or maintaining plants, and it's my Garden 30. And I started this because with all the busyness of Self-Reliance Festival, I was finding it hard to prioritize important plant maintenance. And so I decided that for 30 minutes a day, at least 5 days a week, I would go out to the garden at preferably the time of day that's not like blazing hot, and I would maintain it. And I would pull weeds, and I call it my Garden 30. And I did that for a while, and I've managed to make 4 or 5 days a week, even during Self-Reliance Festival, except for when I was out of town. So I did that. And then I decided, you know what? I'll add extra accountability in there. Oh, that's a pretty bird out my window. And I'll live stream while doing it. Well, I'll tell you this. I'm slower in the garden while live streaming because I'm trying to keep up on comments from y'all. But I did that, and the first thing that happened is Tori said she listened to my Garden 30 while she was doing her Garden 30 the next day and got a bunch done, and she was super happy because the power of the Garden 30 is you do 30 minutes and you're done, even though you're not done, right? Because you're never done. You're never done with the garden. But if you put 30 minutes every day, what you start seeing is an incremental slow improvement of the situation. And what we have at my place is weedmageddon. Despite the fact there's a lot of mulch and cardboard down and all of those things, I still get a bunch of weeds. Yesterday's weedmageddon was the worst because my garlic patch has been ignored, and we didn't have mulch this spring because there has been a dearth of mulch in the area. And I mean, like, we finally just bought pine shavings for the actual garden because that's how bad it is. I'm going to start shredding freaking cardboard with my paper shredder. That's how bad it is right now. Usually I get wood chips from the people who trim the trees on the power lines, and that's just not been happening. So I need to find other means of getting mulch, right? And I don't want to put hay on it because seeds. So that didn't get its spring layer of mulch. It just got the leaves in the fall. And I had, yeah, Aaron says, oh my God, my garlic garden is horrible. Yeah, I had perilla taller than the actual garlic stalks. And we're about a week out on harvesting that. And I was pulling that out yesterday. And then there was bodock, which I was just cutting because I didn't want to pull out that taproot and accidentally pull out the garlic. And we're just doing it every day and getting it done. Present or present? I don't know. Both, actually. Both. So the Garden 30 has been really powerful, and weedmageddon is getting better and better. It was wonderful, and I'm glad you did it live, so I have accountability too. Yep, we'll do it again tonight. Tonight, I'm actually going to get some help with the Garden 30. I don't know what time it'll be. It'll be when the sun's not blazing on the south side of my house, so a little later than yesterday. And I'm going to be installing the trellising for the last 6 tomatoes that are my wall of tomatoes along my house that shade my house, which did not get done before self-reliance. So I'm doing a bunch of front of house maintenance. But I got the garlic patch all done. I was on for an hour yesterday, and it's been really good for me to build that public accountability in, because the easiest thing for me to blow off, guys, is taxes and tax paperwork and pulling weeds. The fertility in the upper garden is really getting a lot better. I've been putting rabbit poop whenever I see a plant that looks kind of light colored and it might need more nitrogen or something. I've been putting rabbit poop on there, and I got some mycorrhizal supplements and, kind of scattered them about. So that's looking good. And there are still some stressed plants, in particular my tomatoes. So we've been doing a tomato blight experiment this year. I planted tomatoes with aspirin. What that's supposed to do is mimic the blight without being blight, and then the tomato builds up its defenses to the blight. But if your soil is not balanced already, that does not help you, because any tomato that's out of balance anyway, like if there's not enough magnesium or calcium or any of those things that tomatoes want, will not push back on the blight, even with the aspirin. Aspirin is not a magic wand solution to blight. And so I've had a couple of tomatoes in parts of my upper garden in the soil that were in places where there was a pocket of not very fertile start developing blight. And this year, instead of, I used to just trim the leaves off, I pulled the whole plant, even if there's green tomatoes on it, just ripped it out, because I have other tomatoes up there that look really good. And I decided that I've got enough tomatoes in front of my house to get my 200 pounds of tomato goal this year. I'm sure of it. Unless the oven furnace temperatures keep coming and we don't get the tomato set because it's too hot for the blossoms to set tomatoes, I'm going to be good here. And if that happens, then I will buy tomatoes from other farmers who are better at it than I am. But I pulled it all out because I don't want to even start having the blight spread from tomato to tomato to test my aspirin theory. The other thing is, Tactical put the aspirins up there because I was out of town. I planted the tomatoes, left town, and said, put the aspirins. And I said, did you get them on all the plants? And he said, I think so. But he didn't know where I'd put all the plants. And when I put them out, they were short. So it's also possible that some of these plants got aspirin overlooked. We'll see. But so far, so my report on the aspirin thing, I don't know if it's going to work for the whole season, but I do know this. My front of the house plants are not having signs of blight it usually builds from the bottom up. They have not started that yet. As long as they don't start that, then we're good. There are 2 things that change on the front of the house tomatoes. 1, when it rains, they do not get rained on, and there is absolutely 100% no bounce back from the soil. 2, I've been putting aspirin in their hydroponic water system. So I don't know, but it appears to have at least delayed it this year, even though we have a furnace. So it's August and June here, just as a full transparency, this is August weather. My air conditioning is barely keeping up right now. It's terrible. And I hope it goes back to normal by July because I kind of missed July. So Trisha, welcome. Welcome to you and Liz. The green beans are blooming, which means we'll have green beans probably in a week or two. Once the blooms happen and they set the beans, like one day you'll see a bean about an inch long and the next day it's 3 inches long and the next day you're harvesting it. Sometimes it just depends on how fast it goes. If we get rain today, it's going to be explosive here. In fact, when Nick Ferguson drove up to my house, he was like, Nicole, it looks like you've had a huge burst in fertility. I was like, yeah, for me, that means weedmageddon, just for the record, because it's just like stuff is as tall as like my Jerusalem artichokes are already 2 feet taller than I am right now. He said, do you know what changed? And I was like, well, sheep and rabbit changed. That's what happened. And we've been keeping up on a cycle of stuff. So I know what changed a little bit, but I was not expecting just this dramatic of a change in 1 year. It's been about a year since he's been here. So, I mean, he may have been through in the fall, but everything was dead when he was through, if it was. So it's just crazy here. I'm going to get beets from my beet garden this year. So like 3 weeks ago, I told y'all I wasn't going to. Yeah, James, weedmageddon's a thing here. When you move to Tennessee, you'll know. You'll know. You'll be like Nicole said, weedmageddon, and here I am. But I didn't think I was going to get beets. And then I looked at, and like the germination wasn't good, but the ones that germinated are starting to bulb out. And so I think by the end of this week, they'll be big enough. I'm going to pull those out and I'm going to have pickled beets from my own garden. Now, it's not as many beets as I was hoping I would get, but I have a bushel of beets coming this weekend anyway. So we'll be doing the rest of the year's pickling over the weekend. And I was really lucky to get this giant dill plant, and it's been drying inside. And I just use dried dill as part of my pickling process. I have a giant dill plant outside that's putting seed heads on, and I'm letting it put seed heads on and go to seed because my long-term dream for my property has been 2 things. 1, the dill patch people tell me about. You know what I'm talking about. The dill patch you can't kill that comes back every year, from which you harvest fresh dill when you're pickling. You know that dill patch? Yeah, I think I'm 15 years in and still don't have that dill patch. Maybe this year is the year. The second thing I've always dreamed of is a rosemary plant that overwinters. And I have like 10 rosemary plants out there right now. In fact, we killed one this week on accident because it is what it is. Okay, that's everything from the grow segment. Next up, I'm going to talk about holler neighbors and community. Jenny made a big announcement, and she may port in, but she made a big announcement online, and I think a lot of you have seen it. Has anybody seen it in the live stream? Jenny has some opportunities that are not in the holler. So Jenny will always be a holler neighbor, but she's going to be a holler neighbor that does not live close to us for maybe forever, maybe for a few years. We don't know. Unfortunately, she'll be moving to another state for a really great career opportunity. And I'm really excited for her. But at the same time, we're a little sad here because we've had a really good balance among the 4 of us. And her like impact on us has been very calming because this is going to come as a surprise to everybody. I'm a little frenetic. Like I push hard, I work hard, and people around me sometimes get exhausted by the constant do. You know, it's a thing. And she's really good at bringing up, okay, I sense tension here. Let's talk about that. And that's because people don't like to say no to me sometimes. And when we've been careless, she, in a way that's kind, will be like, hey, maybe you should think about your being careless and stuff. She never says it that way. That's how I'd say it. That's why it would offend somebody probably. But she'll say it in a way like, hey, think about what you just said there. Or I was thinking about this thing. And it kind of has been a very connecting impact on the neighbors. And my biggest fear when she has moved to her next place is that we'll lose that. So I'm thinking about how can we be purposeful about keeping that, because that's part of what makes holler neighbors work. And then there's going to be an opening in the neighborhood sometime in the summer. So so sad to see her go. Glad for her. It's kind of like a bittersweet thing. And I was hoping she'd be on today's live stream so she could field questions from you. I don't know. I'm going to actually send her the invite link here. Jenny, I'm sending you the invite link if you're around. So I'm just sending her that. So we'll bring her in. If she shows up, I'll bring her on screen and y'all can ask her all sorts of questions. Chicken processing workshop is in 2 weeks. It's sold out. If you want to be on the waiting list, email me. We are not, in fact, processing crickets as stated in a couple podcast notes ago, as was pointed out by Ken Esch, but that was right before SRF, and apparently I typoed chickens into crickets. I would be willing to process crickets if we need to. I mean, Jenny said she's definitely processing crickets that weekend. So there we go. So Jenny's here. Jenny, are you here? Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Jenny, are you there?
I'm here.
He's there. Okay, guys. Any questions you have for Jenny or me about Holler Neighbor things, just throw them out. Are you in the car?
I am in the car.
Okay, cool. Well, I dropped your bomb. Do you want to drop your bomb too?
Oh, no. Do I have to say it again?
No, I said it for you.
Okay. Well, then they know.
Okay. They know. Crickets would be less messy. We're talking about the cricket processing workshop.
Yeah, you just dip them in chocolate was my plan.
Yeah, I think dip them in chocolate and cook them like in the oven. So cook them in the oven, then do that.
Yeah. Or maybe dehydrate them. Hey, you know what? We should freeze dry them.
Freeze dried crickets. People do that. So are you coming into the keys to the car? No idea. Look on the dining table.
Hi, people.
Yeah. Apparently Tactical hasn't left yet, but he was leaving an hour ago when I started this. So anyway, any questions for Holler Neighbors, just throw them on, guys. Put them in all caps so I can see them. That would be really great. Lone Star Living says, whoa, have I joined the Matrix? Yes. Visually, Jenny looks like Stripes, but that's because she's coming to us over Cell Network. Is what it is.
Sorry.
So I was gifted an HVAC, a mini split for the roasting shack, and I picked it up. And it needs to be installed. And Nighthawk has just started doing HVAC. So he was supposed to install it this weekend. So he looked, and I don't have the install kit. So now we're going to order that. It'll be another week. So next week, when it's like 100 degrees for 2 days straight, no AC in the roasting shack, which means 120. Jenny, we have a question for you. What are you going to miss the most about the Holler?
Oh my gosh. That one's hard because there was so much growth for me, like personal growth for me while I was there. But I really loved how when we were first doing Holler Neighbor dinners, well, when we cut it down to 2 days a week, like that was perfect. It was the perfect time to check in, talk about projects we had going on, stuff like that. But like the Holler community has been ultimately my family. I don't speak to any of my blood relatives, so everybody in the Holler, they're my actual family. So I will miss them immensely. Gonna try not to cry about that.
Okay, so thanks for asking Jenny a question that will make her cry, guys. Yeah, we'll miss you too, and I'm really hoping whoever moves in is a good fit for the community, in the same way, like willing to get together. Because I enjoy, like, that's why we're smoking some pig this weekend and getting together. It's like, well, we better get our dinners in with Jenny before she heads out, even though we know you'll be back through to ridicule us, right?
No.
I was kidding, Jenny. It was
well, I love. I think the coolest part though of being able to be there for the time that I was also figuring out what parts of community work for me and which ones don't, and what I want to do. Like it changed some of my long-term vision. Yeah, which was really interesting. So I do hope whoever comes next, maybe they'll hit some of those moments too, where they're like, oh, this works and this doesn't work, and I need to work harder here. The Holler's always been a really good place for growth overall, just in your skill set and your network and everything. So I definitely hope whoever comes in brings something awesome with them.
Are you willing to share some of the things that worked well and did not work well for you?
So you know what? I'll have to think about that.
Yeah. It's not easy off the top of the head, is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah. We had some times where we would all not talk to each other for a week or two, and that I thought was weird. And I'd be in the midst of it going like, we really should get together, but we're all so tired.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like we're that far away from each other, but some days it did. It felt like we were
miles.
An airplane across. We were across the pond from each other or something.
Yeah. Meanwhile, yesterday I just popped up in your yard because I thought there was a pregnant pig I had to look at.
Yeah. She still doesn't look pregnant this morning, so.
She's due in September if she's pregnant.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm assuming, I know that pigs will do what pigs do to get pregnant when they're pregnant. I know that's possible, but I feel like I wrote down when that happened last, and that was almost exactly a month ago. So
yeah, I think the other thing is if she is pregnant, it could just be that this isn't her first rodeo, if that's what's happening, you know. So maybe she has a little bit more instinct with it than she did the first go round.
Maybe. Also, she has things she can build a nest with, which she did not have here.
That's true. There is that. Yeah. She's going to make the most glamorous giant nest. With all it was hilarious yesterday watching her walk across through the pond, like wade through the water. And then she was like, I want this one specific route. She would take that route and then walk all the way back across the pond to the water. I thought it was hilarious. She's very particular.
Yeah. This leaf goes there. This branch goes there. Back to the leaf. Yeah. It was so, last time she did this, we had an earthquake.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe we're really going to get the thunderstorm today that they keep promising. That's my hope.
I only am excited about that if it cools things off.
Well, it will while it rains, and then the sun will come out and it'll be even more humid.
Yeah, and then it'll feel like we're boiling.
Yeah, then you're going to go inside.
Yeah.
So Michael says, Jenny and I talked about how to build community and avoid knife fights. How do you avoid knife fights in community, Jenny?
Well, you don't. So you did make it not be a fight. You be the first one to pull and the first one to make a move.
Pull your knife first, and there's not a fight. There you go. Wise words from a holler neighbor. Holler neighbors don't mess around, guys.
No, we play with prison rules.
Sometimes we do. Okay, well, I'm going to keep going. Guys, if you have questions, just throw them. Jenny, I was just getting to infrastructure. Do you want to give the pig pond update?
Sure, I can do that. So it has a little bit of water in it. So it's holding, and that's the good thing, is because it's actually working. I spoke with the previous person who lived there who was like, yeah, we could never get it to hold any water at all, so it's really cool to see it holding. The depth is about as tall as Lady Pig's legs. I don't know how much that is measuring it any other way. And they're still working around the edge of the pond. We figured out how to distribute their food. So they kind of broke some of that stuff down. I believe Tactical said yesterday that tree roots were the problem with getting it to hold more. So I think some of those trees will be coming out and we'll be spreading out the actual fencing or some more so that there's some different area for them to work through too.
Yeah, so we were talking to Nick and he said anywhere there's roots, that's a place for water to get through. And if we pull the stumps and remove the trees from the actual bank that's required to keep the water, then the pigs will start working on it. He said it could take the pigs a couple years to finish the pond. That pond is already holding more water than it was down in the base of it, which is kind of cool. So hopefully that makes the difference it needs to make. And it's actually kind of cool to see pigs do this work so that we do not have to pack clay in there, right? They're packing it in there for us. I just heard the door close, so I think Tactical found my keys. Apparently, I pulled some crap and I put my keys back where I don't usually put them back, which is in my purse. They usually hang up. So, as far as fencing goes, the fence chargers around here have an ever-increasing jewel rating. We were doing 4 jewel. We're going to do 8 jewel next. We're trying to give animals a real zap who hit those things. And then the pasture rehabilitation, I wanted to talk about this too. And I ended up, like, we overseeded the pig pasture that had gotten so crappy because they were on it for so long this winter, and we already have grass coming up. We're ready to chop them and drop 1/2 of it of pioneering species, and I think we'll be able to run sheep through there by the fall unless the drought is so bad this summer. So that's looking pretty good. I got a question here. Will you worry about parasites keeping the pigs in the same spot for a long period of time? I always worry about that, but we have not had parasite problems with our pigs. We had one pig with worms that we got from another farm and did not pass the worms on to our pigs. So it could happen, but the key is to keep them out of their own poop. So we are actually rotating the pigs out of the pond area for a bit, and they'll come back. We're not just going to keep them there the whole time. I think Tactical's already talking about how he's going to push out and around Jenny. I don't know if you know that's happening, but surprise! Yee! So Jenny,
we talked about
yeah, he talked to you?
Yeah.
I was going to say, this is what it is to be a holler neighbor. You find out what's going on the live feed, right?
Sometimes.
So TLR says, do you cook your elderberries or use them raw?
You cook them.
I cook mine.
Yeah.
I have eaten the occasional elderberry raw. Some varieties can cause stomach discomfort if you do that. I don't know which variety I have because it just plants itself here. I cook them with some apple juice that I got locally, and I add cinnamon and other herbs and make elderberry syrup without adding sugar or honey. Jenny, what do you do?
Basically the same thing. I like using them dried. Personally, I think I just like it for the reason that it's more shelf stable. You don't have anything.
Yeah.
You know, I imagine you can do it the same way, but same thing. Cinnamon. I want to say I put cloves and things like that in there. So ginger. Yeah.
Ginger is a must. I actually use dried ginger. I will use fresh ginger if I have it, but I keep dried ginger like the kind you bake with, and I use that, and it works for me.
Yeah.
So
I've done that. I prefer it with the fresh, though.
Yeah, it's better with the fresh, but letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. There's one example. Cloves.
Exactly.
Cloves in there. We do. So Nick Ferguson was here to help us plan for a food forest, which we are going to start the installation of this fall. And it looks like we're going to have a small class here for the food forest installation. It's going to be about how to plan a food forest and then the initial earthworks. We're not planting the things in it. We're going to do ground cover and then plant the actual food forest at my workshop. If I'm unable to manage a class because of my time, then we'll be doing that without we won't be doing the class, but I'm pretty sure we're going to do a class for like maybe 20 people. So that will be probably after Jack Spirko's workshop in the fall, but I'll have an exact date coming up soon. I need to talk with Mama Sauce and some other people because there are a lot of events coming up and we just need to balance that. Looks like Jenny fell off and she'll be back on. As far as the next segment, this is our last segment of the show, and then we'll stay on for Q&A afterwards. Finances on the homestead. So hay was not in our scenario for the sheep, so they're costing more than we thought, but not that much more, so no big deal. But I think that's important because when you do livestock, you end up needing to have a cushion. So having enough of a cushion to be able to buy the reels for the fencing, to buy the extra step-in post, to buy a little bit more wire makes it easier to manage them. And then to have the hay, and I found a really good source for hay. Just think about that when you're like, hey, I want to start rabbits. Don't start rabbits with your last dollar and then not be able to buy rabbit feed or a nesting box or materials to make a nesting box. And then my other thing is pretty much everything we need to eat here is here, and we don't need to go to the grocery store. So we've reached that time of year in June this year. Sometimes I don't reach it till July, but I'm really excited to be here right now. That said, I'm still resupplying the long-term stores because I'm trying to keep ahead of the supply chain disruptions that have been kind of rolling through different sectors of the market. So that's been the Homestead update for today. I hope everybody enjoyed it. If you did and you want to support the show, you can do it in two ways. One, get your coffee at Holler Roast. Two, consider becoming a member. Our next webinar is going to be how to get an event started. So we'll be doing that. I think it's next weekend. I don't know exactly. I will definitely send an email about that. And that's over at livingfreeintennessee.com. With that, guys, go out and make it a great week. That long silence is so I can cut the audio. And then, does anybody else have questions? Or Jenny, you want to talk about anything? I assume Jenny is.
Today is so well. You know what I noticed? I'm busier from the time I said I'm moving to like now.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, "Oh, hey, can you do this though before you leave? Can I come see you before you leave?"
Yeah.
So everything has been like crazy busy with all of that, and then we have I'm in Murfreesboro right now.
Yeah.
And so we have appointments and stuff down here, and then I have a trip to go finalize an apartment and all that stuff coming up next week. And I'm like, man, I went from having some excess time to how am I going to get all this stuff done?
You're going to get done.
Yeah. I'm trying
Are we throwing a going away party for you?
Well, I mean, I don't know.
We should. I mean, I could do a surprise party, but I don't like surprises like that either. So,
yeah,
we should totally do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. We'll talk about that.
Maybe we can convince somebody to finish the deck, staining the deck during the party.
A going away deck staining party. Woo!
Yeah.
Hey, at least we fixed the rickety step, by which I mean I think Ryan fixed it, didn't he? It was Ryan or Carrie?
No, Carrie did.
Oh,
yeah.
Carrie fixed it. Yeah, it was one of those two guys. They're like, that's really sketchy, Nicole. I'm gonna go fix it. I'm like, yay! I don't have to fix it.
Yeah, it was awesome. There's a board that needs to be replaced, but that's a tactical job.
Yeah, I know the board of which you speak that needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
Tori says, I'm going to miss Jenny and haven't even been to the holler. Guys, Jenny is still welcome on the weekly live stream. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we know we'll see you here too.
Yeah, I'll be in for sure.
You'll be in.
Well, I'll be coming to every month. That's happening. So.
Yeah, that is a thing. Cool. A GSD going away party. Absolutely. Maybe it's a GSD to get you packed. Wait, GSD garage sale.
Oh, I need that too.
Yeah, that might be more helpful. Because then you could be like, you don't even have to be here for it, but we want to be here with you. So,
yeah.
What were you going to say that I interrupted 3 times?
Oh, it's fine. I was just saying I finally got an alert for the severe thunderstorm that supposedly happened.
Oh, somebody said it's raining in Madison, Tennessee. So I'm actually going to run out and move the rabbit poop undercover that's in the garden up there after this. But yeah, I'm excited. I really want rain because my garden, rainwater is better for your garden than sprinkler water. That's a thing. True. Yeah. Cool. Okay, guys, I don't see a lot of questions coming. Wait, is there going to be some sort of tribal council to vote a new holler neighbor onto the island?
Ooh, that's a really good plan.
Yeah.
You can tag them tasks, and if they complete the task, then there still has to be a vote.
I'm at the wait to see what shakes out stage right now. So
yeah.
Some folks have reached out. We'll see. And we'll see. If not, there will be a house for rent. Jenny, I actually thought of moving into that house.
I don't think that's a bad idea, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for I really like being here and not there.
I mean, you're gonna have both.
Right.
So,
This could become the woofer house. Yeah, anyway. Okay. Well, it looks like things have slowed down in chat pretty quickly today. Guys, thanks for joining the live stream. The audio podcast will be out soon. Jenny, I hope to see you on these a few more times in the next few weeks. And we'll be back next week with another Homestead update.